what we're going to do today is a little bit of a challenge to start off with. Again, with your knee, this might be one of the ones that's a bit too much, so you can modify it. But what we're going to try and do is a narrow stance squat. So what we normally get very good at is depth squatting like this. We're going to challenge it instead of narrow. So you're going to see how close to the floor you can get in this kind of position. Now, my heels do come up, but what your goal is to try and get your heels to the ground. Now, for you, Stuart, you might only want to go to here, okay? So there's very little load on your legs, and you're just doing kind of a squat like this. So most of the stretch is down the hamstrings and the calves. I wouldn't necessarily recommend going into this position unless you feel no pressure on your knee at all.
Okay.
Okay, so guys, when you're ready, drop down. And just try and push those heels to the ground as best you can. You can play around with the position a bit. Now, I've kind of cheated on this because I was warming this up earlier. And even with that, I still can't get them fully down.
I was just trying to move the... Come on, little man.
Okay. What I like to do when I'm in this position as well is just play around with a little bit of an adductor stretch. So just move the elbows and just press them out slightly. And then just let it come back in, out slightly. Yeah, sorry, if you guys have just done the circuits, this is going to be a bit tough. And that's really good there, Stuart. So I just keep that there. If you're comfortable with that, just keep in exactly that position. All right. And what we're going to do is grip under our feet, if you can. Again, under calves if you struggle with that mobility. And then what we're going to do is come up into a hamstring stretch from a standing position. Okay, then we're going to drop down into that squat depth again, holding under and back up and just hold it at the top. Now, when you're at this top bit here, the fact that you're anchoring your hands either behind your calves or under your feet means you're going to activate your calves and your hamstrings. Now, if you watch me from the side, I'm going from here to here. Mine can't quite get my arms straight, but that kind of angle is absolutely fine with this, okay? So for me, what that's about, I don't know, 120 degrees. I'm not great at angles, but around that. If you can go all the way to legs straight, that's amazing. That's really good hamstring and hip mobility. It's all about dropping down, trying to keep the heels on the floor, and then lifting up. So it's just challenging different muscles, completely different ranges of motion. So I'm just going to have a look at your form as you're doing this. And again, normally I'm all about keeping the back straight, but you can have a little bend in this particular exercise. Good work. How's that feeling on the knee there, Stuart? Is that okay?
Yeah, it's feeling okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah, up and down, I don't feel pain necessarily. It's only when it's at its max load when I'm all the way down. Anytime I try twisting around or anything, then. Yeah,
don't do that. It's quite often. Was it an MRI scan you had on it?
Yes.
Come on, let's get a few more reps out on this. Nice work. Just hold it if you can at the bottom. That's absolutely fine to do. And there was no other, sorry, what I was coming back to you, there's no like meniscus tear or anything like that on there?
No.
No.
Not what they've said.
Yeah, I mean, I see partial ACSs in the clinic, and they're definitely going to operate on it, are they, or have they not?
No, they've not told me. I kind of hoped at my last appointment they would admit one way or the other, but they just said I should do physio longer.
Okay, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, they were trying to avoid it, I think, by the sounds of it. Anyway.
Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes they kind of take the viewpoint on this that we're going to kind of go with it until it almost snaps, and we'll do something about it.
I feel like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm 42. Yeah. So I don't think they think I'm a priority, really. No. My heyday's past me now on the football pitch.
All right then, guys. So what we got is it's fairly common, unfortunately, when you scan these injuries, they're not always the pain-producing structures either. That's an important thing. So that's why doing the physio can sometimes rehab the knee, and it's more an incidental finding. It's easy to damage if you've done some stuff. I'm actually going to try change the lighting here by closing the curtains. So bear with me 1 second. See if I can get us a little bit better. Sorry, that's...
I think we're looking at the curtains.
Yeah, you are. Sorry.
Yeah,
got some nice atmospheric mood lighting now. There we go. That's better. Hey, much better. Okay, so the next one we're going to do here is go into a hip flexor stretch. So what this looks like from the side view. Again, so guys, I'm going to talk through this. I know I do it every time. But what we're looking is for 90-degree angles through our body. What you see again to go into is a lot of people doing this type of thing when they're stretching their hip flexors. Yes, you get a bit of a stretch, but it's not hitting the psoas muscle, which is the most common hip flexor to get tight. So what we're going to try and do, 90-degree angle. Just wait for Stuart to get down into the position on this one. Again, Stuart, what I do is I just get a cushion under your knee if you've got some knee problems, okay? Spot on. And then what you're going to do is, if you imagine you've got a tail, doing that is sticking out your tail. Doing this is tucking it under. You're going to try and tuck it under and push this back hip forward. And you should get a bit of a stretch in the abdomen and a bit of a stretch down the front of the hip too. Lower stomach, upper hip. And then you start to drive forward whilst keeping that same pressure in your bum tucked under. Okay, so we're going to hold this. Again, if you want to increase the stretch further, you take both arms up ahead. If your arms get tired, it's fine. Drop them down behind into this position. Okay, so from the front view, what we also want, which I haven't said before doing this exercise, really important for knees, that is tracking over our toes. You don't want this type of thing happening or this type. You're going to abnormally load that knee, so just drive it straight over the toes when you're doing it. Okay, now what we're going to aim for today is slightly longer periods of stretching. So we're only going to do about 8 stretches. We're going to hold them for 10 minutes. Oh, it's 2 minutes, not 10 minutes. Got that bit long stretch session. 2 minutes each, okay? Or 1 to 2 minutes. If it's this side like this, we'll do a little bit longer. So we're going to try and get a bit deeper into those hips. So when we did that first mobility test, if you guys kept your score, you should see a really nice improvement, hopefully, from doing these. I'll be very disappointed if, especially you, Paul and Caroline, after being so consistent with this, don't improve.
Oh, now we're being picked on.
Okay, and then take a breath in. Try and slide a bit further forward, keeping that tucked under and feeling that down the front of the hip, of the abdomen. Now, what's really important when your arms above your head, and this is one thing with stretching, is if you find they're restricting your airways so you can't breathe nice and deeply, you're actually going to be hindering your stretch. So drop them down to here. Breathe deeply, get your breath calm again, take it up, and breathe deeply again. But hold them here, it's absolutely fine. Okay, going for our last 10 seconds. 2, come on. Okay, let's swap sides, guys. So again, just to talk you through the positioning from the side, 90-degree angles. Here, tuck, bump, under, push, forward. So you kind of, I'm also driving a little bit through this back knee too. So I'm always trying to slide that knee forward, and then the traction you get from the ground is then going to increase the stretch of the hip. That's good. Okay, then arms up when you're ready. So what we're going to focus on this side is breathing. What you will find is as you out breath, you're naturally going to drop a little bit deeper into the stretch. So nice slow, aim for maybe 3 seconds on the in-breath, 3 seconds on the exhale, and then you can practice 4 seconds, 5 seconds as you get a little bit better at the stretch. So I'm going to leave you guys to the stretch there. I'm going to up my game and get some relaxing music for you all this week.
Are we going to have to do the Macarena?
I don't think I've got that one, unfortunately.
Because we did do that last week in a workout.
Oh, honestly, they're becoming so popular now. Let's keep holding it for a bit longer. Those music-themed workouts are just so challenging. I don't know if you guys have.
We did Nemon. It was like,
yeah.
It was a certain amount. I think it was burpees, then press-ups, and it was like, you know, the first minute we were stood, the rest of the minute just stood there doing nothing. Then the Macarena comes on. It's like, we can do the Macarena, and everybody knew the moves.
Oh, that's a bit concerning. Unfortunately, I'm in that group who know all the moves as well. Okay, we're going to come back down from there. Can you guys hear the music? I'm not sure with my headphones whether you'll be able to. If you can,
it doesn't matter.
Oh, I'm going to turn it off. You guys can't hear it. It's distracting for me. All right then. So what we're going to drop into now is a lizard stretch, okay? I'm not actually technically sure if this is called lizard stretch, but that's what I've termed it. So what we're going to do is come from this hip flexor position. We're going to bring our arms inside. So you want to walk your foot out roughly 2 kind of feet width outside. Okay, what we're going to do from this position then is try, if you can, and drop your elbow to the floor. Now, I'm not very good through my left hip mobility, so I don't get that close. So it's hands for me, but if you can, if you want an even better stretch that engages all your muscles, you're going to pop up off that back leg, keeping that back leg straight, and then you're going to try and drop it. But just go with where you're at. For me, this is as good as I can get, both palms flat. Even if you're like this and you just got your fingertips, it's fine as well. So again, from the side view, you're looking at either doing this, trying to drop down with that to the floor, or you're going to pop up to your hip and then try and drop down from there, okay? And again, just breathing, and on that out breath, just try and drop a little bit deeper. Now, you should really feel this through the kind of the groin area, both sides you're doing it.
You feeling it in there?
That's a really good effort there, Caroline. So close to her.
Is it going to be both elbows or just one?
I mean, you're so pro if you can get both elbows down, but normally it's just the outside elbow. Few people can get that inside one down. I'm almost there. Now I've gone into, I can get that outside one down. But it's just progression. I mean, that feels a little bit too intense to me today. Been really up in the cycling and the running, which is good that this gets me to do my stretching.
Oh, you're in the Strava group?
No, I'm not good enough to be in that Strava group.
Oh, none of us are that good.
No, I think it'd be a little bit embarrassing if they saw what my times would be on my mountain bike. I don't think I'm in the same zone as those guys. Good. Okay, now what we're going to do with the out breath here is just try and drop a little bit deeper. Seeing if we can get that elbow down. And then sitting. So I'm about that far away from 2 elbows. How far are you guys? Almost get it. Good. Okay, let's come back. Swap over. We're going to go into the hip flexor position to begin with. Okay, so back in that earlier stretch that we were doing. That's it. Get those towels sorted. Foot once, twice. God, that looks like I'm doing a massive movement. I'm really not, honestly. It's tiny. Just a camera angle. There. And then we're going to drop down into here, position 1. If you want an advanced stretch that's really going to hit the groin. So the reason I call it an advanced stretch is when we do it with the knee down, the muscles aren't contracting. If we go into a knee up position like this, suddenly we've turned on this muscle and they're having to stabilize us. And that's going to get a better stretch or a more functional stretch, if you want to call it. So be a little bit more realistic towards that squat. Now, if we can, there we go. Just showing off now, aren't I? Honestly, I don't think I've ever got 2 elbows to the floor before. I don't know what's going on. But again, we don't want to lose form. So one other thing that's really important to say about this, if you guys just have a quick look at the camera, is this position of this front knee. So what you don't want to do is to have to take the front knee so far forward that you're kind of this angle when you're down. You want to keep it so it doesn't go over your toes. So this kind of position and then drop down from there. Show you from the other side, easier to see. You don't want the knee traveling too far forward. It wants to stay above, and that's going to get you a better stretch. Again, it's all about these angles that we're creating. Good work. Now, what we're going to do, so I meant to do this on the other side as well, so we're going to have to go back to the other side, is now that we've dropped into the stretch, we're now going to place our hand on the knee, just below the knee, sorry, so it's not over the joint, so you're going just above it, sorry, on the adductor muscle, and then you're slightly pushing out. Now, what's really important here, regardless if you've got an injury, you don't want to feel any strain on the knee itself, okay? So just lightly pushing it out down to the floor, and then what we're going to do is slowly transfer our weight the same direction of the knee. And what this is going to do is move the stretch so we get a little bit through the bum cheek as well. This is going to be on the inside and outside the hip. The further you're able to go, the more that stretch is going to transfer. Good work. This is just warming us up for our next stretch. Okay, let's bring the feet back. Same on the other side. Get into that lizard position. Drop the leg out to the side and slightly lean over. Again, in. Again, slightly different point with that muscle. Good. Just going to hold that for 10 seconds. And then we're going to go into our modified pigeon stretch, okay? The reason this is modified is I'm a chiropractor. We take particular care of our backs. What you see a lot of people doing is they'll come in, they'll just like flop over like this, completely rounds the spine. For me, you don't get as good connection to the muscle as functional connection. So we're going to get from a plank position, foot comes through like this. We drop down over the top into this position. But what we're doing is we're keeping our backs straight. Okay, so there's a little bit of pressure through the hand. And the way we're going to make it more challenging is by bringing the foot further forward. So you create more of a 90-degree angle across here. So I'm at about, just under, probably about 70, 80. The goal is to get to 90. And now you want to feel this again through the bum cheek. You don't want to feel it in the groin. That's not a good place to feel this stretch. It is, bring the foot slightly back, mess around with your position a bit. And then when we've got this position, like this, straight back, we're then going to walk our hands, keeping our back straight over to that left-hand side. We're going to hold that there. So I've got my left leg forward. Sorry, guys, I'm not being specific, my left and right. So I've got left leg forward, walking to left. To be honest, if you've gone left leg forward or right leg walks left, we're going to do both sides. So it doesn't matter. Okay. So again, get the breathing back. It's guilty of it then too. 3 seconds in, 3 seconds out. We're now going to walk our hands forward to where we were the first time. But what we're then going to try and do is see, whilst keeping our back straight, how far can we do this without doing this type of thing? So we're still keeping our back active, a nice straight line through here. Where can we get to? And as you kind of grip your fingers further forward, it should intensify that stretch. Good work. Okay, now we're going to walk our hands slowly to the right hand side again, back straight. Now, the reason we do this is our glute muscle, our bum cheek muscle is like a fan shape. So it goes like this. And if you just do your pigeon in one position, if you're constantly just stretching like this, you're only hitting this mid portion of the muscle and you're neglecting the sides. So what we're doing here is hitting it. So we've got good flexibility through the whole muscle. And again, the reason I keep my back straight is we're making it functional to a squat movement pattern. You're never going to do a squat and round your back like this at the bottom of it. So again, it's helping that functional range of motion. Nice work, guys. Okay, back to the middle. Same on the other side. I don't know how you guys have been feeling, but I kind of feel during quarantine, we've seen quite a big improvement in flexibility. I don't know if you guys are the same, noticing that too.
Has been a bit, yeah.
I think it's got easy. It's got easy, yeah.
I think doing a bit more focus on bodyweight exercises helps too, because you can be a little bit stricter with your form.
I mean, it's a shock going back to the nails class in 30 minutes. Yeah. That's going to kill, that is.
Yeah, it does. It does. Good. Okay. So we're going to walk over, first of all, to the right-hand side this time, holding that position there. Good. And also what you're trying to do as well is minimize. You can see this gap here that I've got where the daylight's coming through. You're trying to get that as close as you can without rolling and doing this, keeping in neutral position, just everything lined up, pelvis straight. You're trying to see how low you can get that gap. Because the more flexibility you've got through this glute muscle and the more hip flexion you've got, the easier that's going to be. Back to the middle. And this time we're going to stretch the hands forward, keeping that back straight. How far can you get?
I can't see my back.
And then we're going to go across to that left-hand side. Again, this is the one where you're going to want to drop in and do this type of thing. So the easiest way to do it is just try and keep a little bit, just minimum amount of core activation just through that middle. It's not like you suck it in much, but it's just not feeling like it's going like basically completely like jelly. You're keeping some tension through that midpoint. Good work. So let's get the breathing. Okay. And relax back there. So what I want you to do for these next two, Stuart, is these are going to be the ones which are going to impact your knees the most. Are you okay sitting cross-legged?
Yes.
Yeah. What I'd suggest is get a couple of cushions underneath, so you're sitting on a few cushions. That'll take a bit of the strain off the knee and just go where's comfortable. The knees aren't necessarily the main point we're going for this, and then just try and copy the movement as best you can. So what we're going to be doing here is combining a pec shoulder stretch with a quad stretch. So for you, so this is going to be a little bit hip opening with some upper mobility. So what we're going to do is start in a kneeling position. One thing that's really important I see people do is they let their feet fold out and then they kind of go down like this. You'll get further, but again, it's terrible for your knees to do that. So make sure you're completely tracked over them. Your hands are then going to go back to the floor. You're going to lean back in this position. And what this is going to do, if you can see, I'm really opening up my chest here to get all the way back. So we're creating a chest. So from the side, it's going to look there. And then you're opening that chest out, which is stretching it through there. Good work. And then what you can do, I think you'll be able to do this, is if you're really good at this, just fall back. You just get your whole body flat to the ground. So you just go, whoop, I can't quite do it. You just let it go completely so that your torso rests on the ground. It's probably having a bit of confidence more than anything. I think you've probably got the flexibility, but that's fine.
My legs won't let me go back any further than that.
So just try and keep them there. And you should feel a nice stretch, through the quads, through the chest. And we're just going to breathe through this. Now, what I like to do on this is I like to get my hands and kind of grip and then twist slightly out. What that twisting out motion does, it just opens up the chest a little bit more. So they're gripping like this and then twisting out. That's raised everything up. Let me get a nice stretch. Now, another key thing to say with this is with stretching, it's so important not to feel it through the joints. So if you are feeling this through your knees, just make the stretch a little bit easier. Maybe go to like this angle, just go onto the heels and do this type of thing, okay? There's regressions back that you can do for it. Again, it's just to make sure you get a good stretch. How are you feeling that, Stuart? Is that working all right, cross-legged?
Yeah. That's fine.
Okay, now that's probably long enough for your pec muscles in this position, so I'd come back up from there. And then what we're going to do is, Stuart, you're going to stay in the same position cross-legged as long as that's comfortable. And what we're going to do is put our hands straight out to the side. We're going to grab the neck lightly and just pull it over the other way. You know, you're actively trying to push this right hand or whichever hand away. And what that's going to do is create some tension down this neck muscle. Now, this is one I've actually changed my focus to quite a lot. If you're working from home, spending more time sitting, these muscles can get really tight. One of the key things to do is not to overstretch this muscle. It's really gentle pressure and it's a really gentle stretch. If you start yanking it, they're very sensitive muscles. They've got very small attachment sites. It's going to pull and strain them. Now, what we're going to do is from this position, you're going to turn your gaze and your head slightly down and towards the shoulder that's doing the grabbing. That's going to slightly change that position of the stretch. Good. Relax there. We're going to go across to the other side. Same thing. Arm out to the side. Just go straight across to begin with. Again, slightly pushing, tractioning that hand away. You can hold it out, you can hold it up. It doesn't really matter as long as you're feeling it pushing away. Right, guys. Okay, and then we're going to slightly turn it down towards that shoulder. Same thing. This just hits a different part of the muscle. Just do a couple of little twists to the neck just to reinforce that motion, just gently from side to side. Nice work, guys. Just quickly have a look at what we've got next. Done the interlocked fingers. Excellent. Okay, so we've got our last two stretches now. What we're going to do is drop into a nice, easy child's pose. Just have a little relax. That's this position here. Now, what I want you to do is get into a position where your head can comfortably rest on the floor, which means even if it's like this, that's better than being all the way back here, but stressing your neck to get back. It's just where it's comfortable. And we are actually going to do this one. We are just going to let our arms just relax. Feel easy just for about 20 seconds before we go on to our final stretch. Another little trick we're doing in this position is just trying to breathe into the rib cage as well. Just expand through the rib cage. Okay. Then what we're going to do from here is come into, again, we're looking at a 90-degree angle, going in this position. Doesn't matter where you have your toes, whether they're here or here. Again, get some support under your knees if you need it. And then we're going to work on some thoracic extension. So we're going to drop down, keeping our back straight. We're just going to get the stretch. Now you want to feel it through the lats and then in the mid back. Okay, you don't want to be feeling it too much in your lower back. So it's that position there. Again, breathing into the rib cage as you're doing this. And what we're going to try and do now is get our thumbs up facing the ceiling. So you're kind of putting the pressure to your wrist. So it looks like this here. And that's just going to slightly change the angle of the stretch a little bit more into the lats. You've got flat, it hits that a bit more. Good. Just try to sink down lower and lower without rounding your lower back. Nice work, guys. And we're going to bring it back into child's pose just for another 30 seconds. Relaxing it down. And this one's just to let all the muscles kind of relax after we stretch them out. And then if you remember from the last stretch, we talked about reinforcing mobility. So we're going to go back to that very first stretch that we did with the depth squat. And we're just going to reinforce those muscles so they get used to the new range of motion. Good, so we're going to come up from there into a depth squat position. Okay, remember it's a narrow depth squat, so your feet are not that far apart at all, maybe like 6 inches apart. Going to grab under those toes. We're going to lift up. Again, you're trying to go a bit further than you did initially. And as you come down, try and keep your heels down for as long as you can. And then eventually when they do come up, just let them come up there. And you should notice now that you're getting a much better range, especially on the downward motion. So your heels should be closer to the floor than they were when we started. Good, so just 3 times of doing this, nothing major. And then back down. Just hold that depth squat just for 10 seconds to finish. Just really what you're thinking about while you're here is just trying to get those heels as close to the ground as you can. Don't bounce like I'm doing. Just agonizingly close to getting that. And up. Cool. Well done, guys.
Oh, that is hard, that is.
That is hard. It's just a completely different muscle range, muscle group.